The practice of sadhana aims at converting the crude physical energy into subtle psychic energy, and the psychic energy into spiritual energy, or cognitive faculty, and in the final stage enables the practitioner to become one with the Supreme Entity. Thus, in successive stages, sadhana converts matter into energy, energy into ID, ID into consciousness, and at the high stage ensconces one within Supreme Consciousness. So the goal of sadhana is to establish oneself in the cognitive principle Purusha. Purusha is everywhere in everything. In fact, every manifestation is a form of Purusha, bound by the principles of Prakriti. Your goal is not the Purusha who is bound by Prakriti. Your goal is that Purusha in whom Prakriti lies dormant. The Purusha who is free from all bondage, you will have to realize through real knowledge that he is absolutely unblemished, all-knowing, and unbiased. While performing action, you must remember that the manifested world of both individual and collective form is his manifestation, and through devotion you should realize that he is the life of your life, the Lord of your inner heart. You should not try to look for any other entity. Ekohamsu bhuvanas yasya madhyasa ivagnihi salile sanivistaha tvameva viditvati mrityeyuma meti nanyaha panta vidyateyanaya. A follower of the cult of knowledge knows that in the universe Purusha or Hamsa is one. When the unit mind is bound up by limitations, only pluralities and multiplicities can be seen. But in that entity which is beyond the periphery of mind, there is no scope for pluralities. In fact, with regard to Brahma, no numerals such as 2, 3, or 4 can be used, because numerals come within the scope of psychic knowledge only. Only the word one can be used regarding Brahma, not because he is one in number, but because we cannot logically divide him into any parts or segments. He is beyond the limitations of space-time and individuality. In him, Svadhyaya, differences within the same species, Vyatya, differences between species, and Svagata, differences within the same unit being, are absent. There cannot be two infinite and endless entities. If there were one, would have to become finite. If there were, one would have to become finite. It is possible to describe the inner essence of Purusha to the microcosm, for he is beyond the scope of human mind. Shivam Shidananda Rupa Mad Bhutam. Fire and water are apparently two contradictory things, yet in water he lies in a subtle way as fire energy. This may sound very strange, that the fire which turns water into vapor, the fire which appears as something so contradictory to water, lies latent in every molecule and atom of water. Oxygen, which burns objects, is one of the basic components of water, a compound object. Just as the force of fire is bound with those seemingly are related to the very existence of water, similarly he is in the mind, beyond the scope of the mind. Sadhakas should realize that he is the only goal, the only entity for whom one should yearn. To attain him, the flow of the microcosmic mind should be directed towards him alone. Those whom Purusha is the only object of constant ideation, the be-all and end-all of life, unfold their cognitive faculty by degrees, thus acquiring the strength to overpower the static bondages and become established in the spiritual stance. The Supreme Entity is beyond all limitations. To grasp the real nature of this entity, one must develop an integral outlook by transcending all the bondages of narrow sentiments and isms. Where there are no bondages of limitations, where there is no domineering influence of Prakriti, there cannot be the four so-called noble truths as propounded by Buddha: sorrow, the cause of sorrow, the cessation of sorrow, and the means for the cessation of sorrow. It is absolutely meaningless to attempt to attain immortality, absolute bliss, in any way other than by ideating on the eternal one, the state of Vajra Siddha by the Buddhists, who is totally unassailed by vicious cycle of birth, decay, and death. Where mental development is knowledge-oriented, the latent cognitive faculty of the sadhaka will unfold. Thus, sadhana is the expansion of one's self, the gradual assimilation and subjectivization of the universe. Sadhana is not the path of self-contraction, it is the path of self-expansion. Some so-called philosophies want to dismiss the world as illusory, but are in fact telling lies, consciously and unconsciously. These blood-sucking parasites knowingly indulge in lies of this sort, under the inspiration of the political, economic and other social exploiters, out of greed for their financial gains. These parasites are fully aware of the fact that as long as people remain confused due to the unhealthy effect of defective philosophies, the actional faculty will remain unexpressed, and they can easily be utilized as tools. Remember, the path of sadhana is not the path of escapism, but the path of the brave, the path of vigor. O sadhakas, advance undaunted, courageously fighting against avidya, the force of negativity. Make your spiritual life fruitful with the warmth of your heart, the strength of your muscles, the vigorous activity of your nerves, and the rapid flow of blood in your veins. Yours is not the path of retreat, nor the path of unholy compromise as wretched slaves to the rapacious businessman, or as pawns in the hands of power-hungry politicians. Yours is the path of ceaseless advancement towards the union with the all-benevolent Supreme Entity by connecting the flow of action and devotion with the flow of knowledge. Never surrender meekly like a slave, allowing your inherent power and vigor to be sapped. Remember, the fullest manifestation of your vigor is immortality. Those who dismiss the world as illusory do injustice to their individual prowess and become very cynical. This negative approach leads the human society astray, partially or fully. Seeing how deeply you love your children, a Mayavadin, a proponent of the doctrine of illusion, would say, "Be careful, you are about to fall in the snare of attachment. Remember, this relative world is just an illusory prison." To such a negative statement, a genuine Ananda Margi will say with robust optimism, "Of course I will love my children with all my heart, and through sadhana, expand this love to its greatest or unlimited extent. Let this love, which was confined to one child, be extended to all children. By taking the hearts of all parents within one's own heart, one realizes that every child is worthy of this love. This sort of awareness is possible only through real knowledge, the knowledge of truth. Those who deny the importance of knowledge in sadhana want to throw their humanity into the abysmal darkness of staticity. But is the theoretical knowledge enough? Is it sufficient to know only in theory or through logic that all children of all parents are equal? No, through theoretical knowledge, one can only understand what one should or should not do in sadhana, nothing more. To turn this academic love unto an universal love, one must color the molecules and atoms of this dusty earth with one's love. This is not possible for an ordinary follower of the cult of knowledge. Such people can be very pedantic, but unless certain effective ways are adopted to become one with the Supreme Entity, this knowledge will become barren. Sadhakas know that to become one with him, they will have to remain absorbed in constant ideation on him, and the only will he appear in their hearts in his most attractive form, and then only will he appear in their hearts in his most attractive form. Sa Vishvakrid Vishvavidit Mayonihi Kalakaro Guni Sarvavidyaha Pradanakshetra Gyanaptir Guna Guneshaha Samsara Moksha Stiti Bandha Hetuhu. He is the father of this universe. Everything has been created out of his imagination. When the followers of the cult of knowledge realize that this universe is the combination of the infinite manifestation of the vast cosmic Shita, they stand awestruck by the greatness of that entity. Through the process of thought, it is possible to measure his immensity. The depths of his depths cannot be fathomed. Ordinary microcosms can best be compared to tiny bubbles in the endless cosmic ocean. The Rishi observes that all the thoughts and activities of the microcosm lie within the scope of the limitless intuition of the macrocosm. That is where the macrocosm knows everything inside and outside the microcosmic mind. Nothing can be done secretly. If a sinner pretends to be virtuous by wearing bead necklaces or holy marks on the forehead, simple people may be fooled, but Parama-Purusha knows the truth. He knows more about the sinner than he knows about himself. He knows everything that you know, and everything you do not know. Obviously, there is no other way than total surrender to him. When the follower of the cult of knowledge realizes this truth, they surrender to him without reservation. Those who do not do that either lack knowledge or suffer from a false sense of prestige, a type of psychic ailment. Wise people understand the simple truth that all human endeavor is dependent on relative factors. Intellect, name, fame, and wealth are all dependent on the relative factor of time. They exist during one period of time and disappear later, but Paramapurusha, the Father of the universe, does not have to wait for any period of time to do his work. Time comes into existence when the microcosms are created from the eternal ocean of cognition by the binding influence of Prakriti. Hence he is the Father of time. Being beyond the Paramapurusha is alternatively described by some as the death of time. But I have some objection to this interpretation, because if that were so, then philosophically he could not be said to be above the time factor. Being beyond the bondage of time, he is established as absolute truth and intellect, wisdom, and everything else which can or cannot be thought of by the unit mind. Remains unassailed by the time factor, he is eternal. There are some ignorant people who wrongly believe that God physically resembles an ordinary human being who gets angry, wants to be worshipped, and enjoys being propitiated with food and other offerings. They claim he has various likes and dislikes, that he wants to be evoked at certain times and immersed at other times. But genuine sadhakas, by virtue of knowledge, realize that their dear Lord is not affected by religious paraphernalia and pretentious shows of devotion.